put resumes out into some certain areas more for coaching, impactful communication coaching. I forget even what I said. It was something about me being as a leader, blah, 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 whatever it was I said. And she kind of snickered and said, well, you're not a leader. You don't manage people. And I was like, oh, wait, what year is it? I think we might be done here. That hierarchical, old school understanding of leadership was somewhat shocking to me. Well, not somewhat, it was absolutely shocking to me. And this was well into our work. This wasn't like in our pre-work chit-chat. She had an opportunity to get to know me and an opportunity to understand my worldview and understand my understanding of leadership and understand what it is I do in the world. And so then to have received that was a little mind-blowing.
Hey everyone, it's Lynn Durham, and you're listening to Create Magic at Work. Create Magic at Work is on a mission to equip senior leaders with tools they need to be a true quantum leader and actually understand what that means. Improve employee engagement, retain top talent, and transform your workplace culture to have less drama and stress. So let's start making magic. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Create Magic at Work. Today I have an exciting guest that is joining us, and it is Reverend Sandra Bargman from Sacred Stages, LLC. I met Sandra when I joined the Edgewalkers community. She has been on the Edgewalker leadership team for many, many years, and we hit it off right away, discussing bees, I believe it was.
Yes, it's totally.
Yes, bees.
I love bees. I see you have a bee ring on.
Yeah, exactly. It was so cool. Yeah, so I'm really excited to have her join the podcast and share her insights and her wisdom with the Create Magic at Work community. Sandra is a creative soul, an energetic communicator, and adaptive strategic thinker. She is the consummate multi-hyphenate. I love that. Every career choice she has made has ultimately rested on the ancient Greek maxim, know thyself, the directive that is at the heart of every artistic, spiritual, or leadership journey. Hence why she's a guest today on Create Magic at Work. Sandra combines her actor training skills with her spiritual intelligence and mindfulness teachings in her work as an impactful communication and storytelling leadership coach. Can't wait to get into the storytelling. She helps others in finding their best and truest voice and puts their most powerful, real self forward. Sandra also has a show called The Edge of Every Day. She's garnered a Broadway World Award nomination for The Edge of Every Day. The live CD recording can be found on Amazon and CD. Oh, hold on a second. So you have a solo show called The Edge of Every Day, and you have a podcast called The Edge of Every Day. Got it.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to know that more.
The podcast was named, and I can tell you the story of how the podcast came about from the solo show when we get into it.
Awesome. Yeah. So The Edge of Every Day, the podcast, was formerly on Talk Radio. It's a really cool show, and I encourage everyone to go check it out after you listen to this episode of Create Magic at Work. She's also a contributing author in the #1 book, On the Shoulders of Mighty Women by Leslie Michaels. And we're going to get into some of Sandra's insights today about anger and how we can use anger in a productive way and how we can recognize it. So Sandra, welcome to Create Magic at Work.
Oh, thank you, Amy. It is just such a pleasure to be here with you. You are awesome.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. I'm really excited to have you here. I want to start off because you are multi-hyphenate for sure.
How many hats do you wear?
Yes, what hat do we want to talk about? I want to start off because we had a really cool conversation when we were met up in one of our Zoom connections about leadership. Okay, so before I get into leadership, was there anything I missed when I introduced you in your bio? Anything else you want to share with the listeners?
Oh, dear Lord. Oh, please. No, no. I mean, if it comes up in conversation, great. And,
Okay.
people, if they're interested, they can jump to my website or wherever and learn a little bit more. But, it's all
Yeah.
good. What you mentioned is great. Thank you for asking.
So you had quite an Edgewalker perspective on what a leader is. And the Create Magic at Work community is a group of leaders in the workplace that really enjoy tapping into their spiritual intelligence. So I'd like to start off getting your perspective on what a leader is and maybe hearing a story from you about a time where someone told you you weren't a leader.
I have a recent one. I've been a lifelong leader. And in fact, I talk about that in my piece that for the book On the Shoulders of Mighty Women, and my piece being Anger and the Reluctant Leader. I've been connected to my leadership my whole life. I would have to say that, but I don't, and the reason I mentioned I've been connected to it, but I've never worked in a stereotypical leadership role in that I'm not management. I've never gone corporate. I've worked with people who are in corporate work, but that has never been my path. The way that I think of leadership, the overarching, there's many ways that I like to talk about leadership, but the overarching umbrella is that leadership is the ability to model courage and to inspire people, whether it's their teams, whether it's the people in their lives, whether it's their family members, to connect to their courage and begin to model it as well. Because you cannot be a 21st century leadership without the courage to connect. You don't get great confidence without courage. Courage is a heart word. It's not a mind word. It's not a hierarchy word. Everything begins with the sense of the courage to look within, the courage to be vulnerable, the courage to listen well without reacting and shutting people down. Everything for me in my leadership journey has always been, well, it's about know thyself, as you mentioned in my introduction, but it's know thyself takes courage.
Yeah. One of the, overarching themes throughout all of Create Magic at Work is the know thyself and the courage to look inward and to ask yourself, where do I sit with this, whatever this is? Or recognize a shadow
Yeah.
that might be
Shadow
within you
work is
that you haven't,
enormous.
that you haven't shined a light on. What can you say to people that are listening that might be working for someone, a leader that doesn't do that type of work?
Well, there's been plenty of times. We've all been there. We've all been in the position where we understand that somebody that's in a position of power with us is not doing their internal work, is not doing their shadow work. So, do we use that? Do we kick and scream and rail against that? Or do we understand that there's a possibility? And I know that this is easier said than done, and there's a spectrum of reactions here, but in a perfect world, in an ideal way, can I see this person as a teacher? Can I see how they are not leading as ways for me to look into that shadow? What is this triggering in me, the way they're not leading, the way they're not demonstrating good leadership? What is that triggering in me that I can begin to take a look at and respond to this in a way that I don't lose myself, that I don't get all stepped over, and in a way that I continue to connect with my courage?
Yeah, I think that is such a good call out because we've talked about this topic with a lot of different guests. How do I handle a toxic work environment that I'm in? Or what do I do if I feel like I'm working for leaders that are out of integrity or different things like that that really crush the
Oof.
soul in the
Oh.
workplace? And your view of reframing it and saying, where are my teachers? And who do I want to be my guide or my teacher in my life? And then seeking possibly a work position from that frame I think can be a really powerful reframe. I keep saying that word, but like, I think that can be a really great way to shift someone into a space where they don't feel stuck. Yeah, I appreciate that view. So let's go back. You had told me that one time someone told you that you were not a leader.
Yeah,
Reverend
I was.
Sandra Bargman, the actress, the podcast host, all the things.
Yes.
Someone told you you were not a leader.
I was absolutely shocked. I was working with a career counselor and trying to spruce up some of my bios and potentially put resumes out into some certain areas more for coaching, impactful communication coaching. I forget even what I said. It was something about me being as a leader, blah, 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 whatever it was I said. And she kind of snickered and said, well, you're not a leader. You don't manage people. And I was like, oh, wait, what year is it? I think we might be done here. That hierarchical, old school understanding of leadership was somewhat shocking to me. Well, not somewhat, it was absolutely shocking to me. And this was well into our work. This wasn't like in our pre-work chit-chat. She had an opportunity to get to know me and an opportunity to understand my worldview and understand my understanding of leadership and understand what it is I do in the world. And so then to have received that was a little mind-blowing. And I think a great lesson for, as we transition into this new one, how do you deal with a toxic leader? We are in that transition period where not everyone understands that leadership is an internal job. They are used to being the ones that make the decisions, that don't do the listening, that tell people what to do. It's top-down understanding. It is hierarchical. So again, that was sad but true. It was a great opportunity for me to be like, oh, so here's somebody that still vibrates there and still works at that understanding. So am I going to be shocked by that statement, or am I going to take this as an opportunity to educate them about 21st century leadership and how we are transitioning into a know thyself leadership landscape? So welcome to it.
Yeah. I mean, coming from the corporate space, I often saw people rise to the occasion once they were given the title. And I like your viewpoint. And of course, this is what I believe, is that we can all be leaders without any title. And that it doesn't mean that you have to have a team of people that you're managing. And I love this Edgewalker perspective that it's not hierarchical anymore. Mm-hmm. So that has actually been a quite newer concept for me in the past maybe 2 or 3 years, coming from that spiritual intelligence lens. And even Dr. Judy, she and I were working on a couple of projects, and I was like, well, do you want to send this out and say like you gave me permission to do this? And she's like, no. She's like, I don't have to give you permission to do it. Like, like you just do it. And I was just like, because I came from very, publicly traded company, like major hierarchical, like, okay. So I love that we're just highlighting this and getting people to think about this. And maybe permission. If you are listening, right. And if you are listening and managing a team, that you incorporate some of this less hierarchical perspective in your leadership.
And the research and the stats are coming in that the more that you step out of that position and you allow people to grow their internal leader understanding, the greater they sell, the greater they work, it's more productive, the return on your buck, the whole 9 yards, it's all there. Anyway, so yeah.
Yeah. So innovative, so impactful because it's empowering, right? And then you get to actually hear what everyone's ideas are. And then everyone feels like they can be more of their authentic selves because they're sharing and interacting. It creates this huge ripple effect that is really beautiful. Yeah. I want to get to this book, On the Shoulders of Mighty Women. Tell me a little bit about On the Shoulders of Mighty Women.
Well, it was written by a dear, dear friend of mine, Leslie Michaels, who sadly passed away in May of last year, very quickly, very suddenly. She was a 20-year, very good friend of mine and came up through the ranks of corporate oil company, and really was about empowering women in the workforce and bringing, a greater sense of authenticity and spirituality and feminism to every single thing that she did. She was all about lifting women up. I mean, she was a mighty woman with shoulders that lifted, that people stood upon. So she wanted to write this book, but she wanted to also involve the voices of other women. And she invited me in and kind of gave everyone the freedom for them to write about what it was that they felt inspired to do. And of course, me being me, who walks through the world with more than a modicum of anger, I knew that it was a powerful topic for me. And the reluctant leader, the person who is, like I said, I walk through the world, and I talk about this in this article. I know that I walk through the world with authority. And I understand that I have a perspective and a worldview that inspires people. Even as a minister, I remember I was at I was at a dinner party. It was a small dinner party, and the couple that had my husband and I was just going into seminary at the time, and they found out that I was going to an interfaith seminary, and they just jumped to the fact that they thought it was going to be a Christian seminary. And it's like the entire vibe of the questions shifted. Like all of a sudden they were really being reverential towards me, this, that, and the other. And I started, it's like it triggered in me this, don't do that to me. Don't put me on any pedestal, period. And it sort of triggered me, and I started swearing more. And it's like, just to break down the conversation, it was hilarious. I was like, no, and here I am, like finding myself not wanting that kind of energy, that kind of hierarchical energy, and that has come around and bit me in the proverbial hiney when I don't behave that way with someone who expects it from me, that I don't approach them in that sort of reverential way that they perceive that they need. So anyway,
on the shoulders of mighty women, where you stepped in and you highlighted anger. And I think you actually had a recent article in Opal Rising, the magazine. And could you just give us a couple of highlights from that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Opal Rising magazine, for those of you who don't know it, run, don't walk, and subscribe to it. And you can find it on all the social media platforms. So what she did, I gave her permission to take excerpts from that chapter in Leslie's book on the shoulders of mighty women. I gave her permission to, because I maintain intellectual control over that property, to put that in the magazine. So what I talk about in the chapter is when it first dawned on me. One of the stories that I tell in the chapter is I went to a very high-powered conservatory for theater training, drama training, and music training, Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, which is also my hometown. And I talked about how I did a scene, my scene partner and I, in class, and we rehearsed, and I had to be angry in this, my character was angry in this, and rehearsed, and we brought it to class, and we did it, and we, chewed up the scenery. And afterwards, the notes that I got from my fellow classmates and my teacher was that I didn't seem angry. My level of anger didn't match what the scene needed. And I was absolutely shocked. It was really kind of when I really started to understand that I had issues around my anger, that I was not I couldn't even conjure it for this role, at least not then. And I started doing some reading and started understanding, psychologically around women being socialized to not deal with their anger and not expressing their anger. And, through time and patriarchal society, thank you very much. I mean, I just kept always bumping up to my anger in situations, my anger at being treated a certain way. I mean, by women and men. women who had internalized misogyny, treating me like, just because I was good looking, that I was some dumb, and that would infuriate me and bring up all kinds of anger. But anyway, fast forward, and this gets back to leadership and understanding how do I lead people that don't get what it is. If I'm an edge walker and I'm on the cutting edge of something and I'm the trailblazer, and these sorts of comments and these sorts of the inability to maybe get this big perspective or this new perspective or to sit with a large opinion, am I going to get angry with them, or am I going to model the courage to explain it in a way where it's disseminated so that they can get the message, or at least get part of the message? If I want to trailblaze and I want to be on the cutting edge like a good edge walker wants to be, I got to get okay with people not getting it. And I can't get angry about that, and finding the edge walker community was really helpful for me in that category. That, I have a really funny phrase that my friends always quote me on. I endow people with skills. And I always say this: don't endow people with skills that they don't have. And throughout my life, I have done that. I've endowed people with skills that they don't have. And then I'm shocked when it's turned on me. And I assume, sadly, for myself, that people are going to see things the same way that I do, when a good leader doesn't need to do that. Understands that there will be, particularly in the 21st century, if you're allowing people to express themselves and to share their vulnerably and to share powerfully and to not be hierarchical, you got to get on board with a lot of people sharing a vast variety of opinions.
Yep. Complexity of thought and complexity of perspective taking. I think that's one of the skills. This anchor piece, I want to just add to what you were saying with women. I find that once we are in a space where we aren't suppressing our anger or we're exploring assertive communication, and I've talked about this before on the show, it's a dance, it's a practice. Often myself, I've fallen into what is the difference between assertiveness and aggression, and being aggressive in because I'm finally like, I have a voice, and then it's like roaring.
Right.
Versus assertive, compassionate
my husband knows the story really well. Yeah. Sometimes I think that very passionate people and people who are really connected to their purpose and really their aliveness, and et cetera. And I put myself in that category. I'm an Aries. I'm creative. I am bold. And so sometimes I talk very passionately, very dramatically, as I'm doing right now. And if people aren't used to that, that can appear angry, when I'm not feeling once of anger. I just have a bold opinion about it.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I'm always like, okay, so where is that edge of every day where I'm aware of my tone, but I also am aware that, you know what, if I'm triggering you with my passionate vocalization and you're all worried that I'm angry and you want to put that down, that's your work. That's not my work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not here to make you comfortable. You're here to make you comfortable.
So good. I have been passionate about certain topics, just like you're saying. And when I'm talking, I don't feel flooded. I'm not triggered. I'm just speaking because I'm passionate about something. And then someone, well, calm down. Well, I'm calm.
Calm down. No. That's like them's fighting words for me. Like, did you just say calm down?
There's that. They say nobody in the history of saying calm down has ever calmed down.
Anyone. Yeah.
Tell me the title of the book again.
On the Shoulders of Mighty Women.
There's a poem from one of my favorite poets, Rupi Kaur. She writes a poem called Progress. And it's a short poem, and it says, our work should equip the next generation of women to outdo us in every field. And this is the legacy we leave behind. So I just wanted to add that to the show and to our conversation. Yeah. So I'll say it again, our work should equip the next generation of women to outdo us in every field. And this is the legacy we'll leave behind.
Yeah.
Love that.
Oh, beautiful.
Take a breath after that. I got emotional reading it.
Love it.
I want to shift into your work in performing marriage ceremonies for couples.
Yeah.
As part of your multi-hyphenate world.
Yeah. It's a beautiful, beautiful part of my work life.
I'm curious, how did you get into all of this? How is someone,
what is the trajectory?
That's
a good question. I know.
How did you? You're an actress. You're a reverend, an amazing author. So,
oh my gosh, thank you. Well, I love to say I popped out of the womb a performer and a kid with the antenna on. I was very connected energetically and very spiritually vibed in. I also loved to perform. I sang and danced and was in a play when I was 6 years old. So my creative life and my imagination were really rich. And I was also a loner, so I could go off and play in the woods and be by myself for a long, long time. I think probably my parents were a little nerved out by some of my spiritual questioning and what I was interested in. Even as a young person, I was always asking, why are we here? What happens when we die? And I think it was a little unnerving probably for my parents. It was easier for me to go into the performing. Probably. Of course, I was too little to make that, there was a part of me that probably the wise part of me kind of latched onto that early on and ran with it. And it was true. It was my mother's, probably she lived vicariously through me. And I loved performing. It's not like I did it for her, but there was a bond and a connection through that. I mean, I also he was a wonderful father, but he was very heavy-handed with me because I was so creative and so sensitive and so independent and such a leader and wanted to do things my way. And that charmed my mother and probably pissed off my father. And so, performing, always being spiritual. And then, the day hit when I just really couldn't not answer the call to be more of a spiritual leader in the world.
I was wondering if you discovered the answer to why are we here?
Well, I'll give you my answer. I don't know that it's the answer, but I personally believe that I incarnated to experience 3D, to experience and to contribute to the expansion of the universe, to contribute to the expansion of consciousness. I believe that I've lived many lives. I believe that I've incarnated at this time for this particular party that we are now on planet Earth with these enormously complex and challenging times. I think that we are here to expand the universe, to expand our understanding of what love is and to contribute to it. Really that simple and that immeasurable.
What are some ways that those of us listening that are just trying to get through the day, get to work, pick up the kids, or pay the bills, what are some small micro steps that we can contribute to consciousness or everybody operating towards a better life or for the greater good? Is there any wisdom that you can share in that regard?
It's hard to be reflective when you're worried about your safety and you're worried about making ends meet. And it takes great courage to find the moments in which to do that.
Mm-hmm.
All I can say really is that there is nothing else to do in these great struggles other than to find a way to feel grounded and to be able to look within. I mean, in times of struggle, find ways of reflecting, literally. I mean, find ways to be with self, find ways of coming to some sort of place where you can feel hopeful, where you can begin to think outside the box and take potentially some different steps that might, if what you're doing it hasn't been working. And this is a hard one, but this is one I ask myself. How have I contributed to this? But if you allow some room within and some willingness to sit with that perspective, you might be completely and utterly surprised by what arises internally on how oh, I didn't see that. I could do maybe this would switch that, and a new action might emerge. A new way of viewing your behavior may emerge.
I love that. That's a really good perspective on shifting out of feeling stuck and just
and feeling like a victim. I mean,
yes. Thank you for sharing that. I also want to share, I'm reminded of Dr. Angelise Arian. I follow her work. I study her work. She's a cultural anthropologist, and she shares in her TEDx talk that from the cradle to the grave, every day we have two companions with us. On the left is death, and death will ask you every day, are you using this great gift of life well? Are you using this great gift of life well? And on the right is destiny. And destiny will ask you every day, are you doing what you came here to do? Are you doing what you came here to do? And I find those two questions really help pull me out of the ego state into higher self. Am I using this great gift of life well? And am I doing what I came here to do? And simply reflecting on something like that on a nature walk, like you shared, journaling, observing what might come up. It might be nothing, but it might be something. And just continuing to stay curious and just kind of look at everything without judgment can often help in those moments. So anyways, thank you for sharing that. I'm gonna pull a journal prompt card for you, for the listeners and everybody. This is your message today from the universe for all of us that showed up for this conversation. No matter when you're listening to it, this message is for you and me and Sandra. Let's see what we have for today. Okay, so we got flexible persistence. Persistence. That's the message. Flexible persistence. The affirmation is, I stay flexible and persistent this is like what we were just kind of talking about. I stay flexible and persistent when working through problems, knowing the only way out is through. I stay flexible and persistent when working through problems, knowing the only way out is through. Powerful.
Yeah. Well, ain't Sandra, that the truth? That's about anger. That's about grief. That's about anything. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask you this question to share an answer for all of us. If somebody has been avoiding actively working through a problem at work, what advice would you give them?
Well, then they will be owned by it, and they will not learn any new skills. If they refuse to engage in it, you might as well leave. Once again, it gets back to courage, Amy. I think people, they think if they don't actively get involved, that it'll somehow just go away. And anything that is active in your life is calling you forward to learn. People really need to get on board that life isn't easy and pleasurable all the time. And quite honestly, in our highest moments, we wouldn't want it to be. We're here to experience growth. And it's the more difficult situations. I mean, people don't write great novels because they're feeling great in life. They don't write brilliant stories because everything's going beautifully. The juice is in when things are not going well. The juice is in, how do I plug into this in a way that I learn, that I turn things around, that I, again, like the reluctant leader, how can I dig in and maybe get this person's perspective in a different way?
Yeah, I love the call out of avoiding something is not going to, I mean, this sounds so obvious, but like how avoiding something is not going to make it go away. However, looking at it as a call.
Yeah.
And the way that you said it's a call, like this is a call for you to notice something. This is a call for you to stop and look at this and uncover what's going on and answer the call rather than avoiding it. Because often when we avoid situations or problems hoping they go away, they continue to grow and fester. I've lived it myself, right?
Oh, we
I'm
all
not
have.
immune to this.
We
Yeah.
all have.
And just, I don't know, spiritually framing it as if it's a call to perk up and be like, what's going on here? Let me stay curious about this. Let me face this. Let me ask for help. All of those things feel very empowering. So thank you for sharing it in that way. Sandra, if people want to connect with you, get to know your work, how can they reach out to you? What do you have going on that they can get involved in right now?
The way people can work with me is obviously, if you're getting hitched and you need an officiant who loves to tell your love story in a unique, modern, heartfelt yet humorous way, I'm your officiant. But the way that the probably would be best for your listeners is impactful communication and storytelling. And I weave together all of my actor techniques and all of my SQ, all of my spiritual intelligence, and weave those together I've come up with a method called the big approach. And it's not about bigger, louder, faster, like that's old school. It's really about getting into all of these, going within, knowing thyself, finding the internal presence that gives you the confidence that then grows the charismatic stage presence that people that always want to find out about and to grow and to check into. And we work on vocal skills and better diction and better storytelling and how to weave all of that together. And yeah.
We will put all of the information and how to connect with you in the show notes.
My website, sandrabargman.com.
Yes. And also LinkedIn.
I'm all over the place. LinkedIn, Insta.
And as of every day is on maximizeyou.life. And all of those links will be there in the show notes. So Reverend Sandra Bargman, thank you so much for being a guest on Create Magic at Work. And thank you for all of your magic that you sent to everyone today. We really appreciate you being here for us.
Thank you so much for having me on, Amy. It's been a delight and a pleasure to be with you and your listeners. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming back every week to listen to a new episode of Create Magic at Work and really helping to support and advocate for healthy leaders, workplaces, and lives for all of us. If you want any information on how to connect with me, click on the link in the show notes. You'll get access to all of the social media links for Create Magic at Work. Stay following along for more amazing episodes where we help you improve productivity and profitability in the workplace and decrease stress. Sending magic to everyone, and see you next time.